Hi, this is Paul. I'm going to talk a little bit about the ARC Conference 2025. Again, as I said in my last video, I'm planning on going, but I'm going now with knowing a little bit more than I did before. Last time I went to the ARC Conference just on the heels of the German festival, the Breakwater event, and didn't quite know what to expect from the ARC Conference. And I think I now have some expectation because I've done it once. And that is beginning to shape how I am approaching this. Conferences are great. Speakers can be great. But to me, usually the best thing about the conference is the people that are there. And what was, I think, really successful about the ARC conference in 2023 was how it managed to draw so many of the people that have been central to the kinds of conversations that we have been having for the last 7 years. 7 years. Yeah, it's 7 years. And even after the conference, I bumped into plenty of people that said, "Oh, I was at the art conference. Oh, I was at the art conference. I only knew about them or learned about them or had the privilege of speaking to them after the last conference." And so whatever you think of what goes on stage, I think the part of the value of this conference is you're going to have a really great selection of the kinds of people who are talking and thinking about the kinds of things we are all talking and thinking about all in one place at the same time. And that sort of led to, well, I loved the Peugeot speech, of course. Ayaan Hirsi Ali sort of coming out there at the ARC conference as a Christian was a moment. But many of my fondest memories of the last ARC conference were having, so again, anybody who watches this channel should have some understanding of this, having really wonderful conversations and meeting some really wonderful people that I hadn't met before. And so I'm thinking about that as I approach this one. And I talked about this a little bit in a previous video, but it is my goal to, as much as possible, have the kinds of conversations that I find I probably can't do in person any other time in any other place. Well, what will that mean? Well, what I like about the Estuary protocol is you can take a group of people that don't really know each other very well. And again, it has to be a small, limited number of people. And that's sort of the sticking point in something like this, because something like this tends to look at scale and size. But take a room of 6, 8, 10, 12. 12 would be a lot for kind of the high-powered people you have at this, probably 6 to 8. And sit them down. And again, what's so lovely about the Estuary protocol is that you go around the table and you've got all of these high caliber, high status, many of them high potency people who are deeply connected with all sorts of interesting things in the world. And you say, what are you thinking about? Bang, wow, bang, wow, bang, wow. And you go around the room in that second round, first introductions. Oh, 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 oh. And then the second round in the Estuary protocol, it's, oh, oh. And then the third round, of course, it's point. Now, in anticipation of this, I'm talking to some people who are looking to assist me in maybe finding times and spaces to assemble these groups. I don't know, until I see the schedule of what's going to happen at the conference, I don't know what evenings will look like. Last time they had these reception type things in the evening, but again, they were sort of large. And so I'm sort of working on a way to, okay, how can here I've got this afternoon. What 6, 8, 10 people can we gather this afternoon for an hour and a half or 2 hours to just really listen to each other and to see each other and to get to know a little bit more about each other? And What will that do? And then what about the evening? Maybe do one in the evening. And there might be so I've got an event right before the art conference now that's forming in Galway, Ireland, which I'm super excited about. I'm really excited about that event. And again, stage events are wonderful, but oh, Mary Harrington's Substack today was again tremendous. Mary, yeah, the consistency of the insights she tends to provoke in me is pretty dramatic. She talked about, of course, the Lily Phillips situation, and then she sort of course, everybody's paying attention to the sex aspect of it, but she paid more attention to the audience capture aspect of it, and she noted quite rightly that Lily Phillips sort of breaks down when she articulates the fact that she felt bad about how she treated the men. Now, we haven't had enough interview with the men. I wonder if the men also feel bad about how they treated the woman. And quite frankly, everyone should feel bad about how they treated each other in that ghastly affair. But Mary sort of pinged in on something that really caught me, because I am a very small fish in a very big conversation. And I kind of like it that way, frankly, because whenever I go and do an event, it's nice to be on stage and to hear yourself talk. Sure, there's a part of my ego that gets fed with that. But every time I do one of these events, I go and it's the meeting of the other people. And it's the meeting of, and I don't think, I'm going to be giving some thinking about how to set up these estuary conversations in that week of ARC in London. And I don't think I will get all of the big name YouTubers or important people to come to my little estuary gatherings. And whether I'd love them to come, I so often find, as I've said many, many times, anybody who's watched this channel for a long time, hierarchies bind and blind, which is what makes having the small conversations of people whose names nobody ever knows, people whose names won't draw big ticket sales, so refreshing. I have met so many brilliant, wonderful, generous, interesting, sometimes slightly strange and even insane people, that meeting them enriches my life, because even in a small conversation, I can see the world through a different set of eyes. And seeing the world through a different set of eyes helps me see the world a little bit better than I can see it now all by my lonesome, or imagining I have some view from nowhere to see everything. So I'm going to be thinking about how I can do this in and around the ARC conference. And because, again, what was really awesome last time was I'll only name some of the people that I spent time with, because some of them don't want to have a lot of visibility. But, Rafe Kelly was a great example, and Nathan Jacobs, another great example, and Glenn Scrivener. I spent a lot of time with Rafe and Nathan and Glenn, and it was awesome to just grab a bite to eat with them and, listen to the wittiness of Glenn Scrivener. He's so freaking witty. And I love the passion and earnestness of Nathan Jacobs, and the honesty and transparency and wholesomeness of Rafe Kelly. And then there are others that I got to get a chance to spend time with, and to me, those were the big takeaways from the conference. And so I'm gonna release this on Friday morning. The Friday live stream this week is going to be me leaning into this a little bit. And I'm going to do some Friday live streams where there's just going to be 6 of us. And we're going to use the Estuary protocol to talk about whatever. And I'm going to start with some people who are recognizable faces in the corner, and then I'll probably branch this out. And for me, this is probably going to be, I'm going to try to figure it, because the Randos conversations, of course, I haven't done a lot of them lately, and there are reasons for that. But I also want to find a way of the part of the emotional difficulty of the Randos conversations was always that they're a one-off. And because of the Dunbar number and the limits of time and space and all sorts of established relationships, I can't have the kinds of relationships with as many people as I would like to. And so second best for that as a pastor is to create the kinds of networks by which, if I can't have the kinds of relationships I want to, probably what can happen is that there can be networks of relationships, and even the kinds of relationships that people will have with one another will be better than a relationship that I can have with them. And I see that all over the corner. When I look at the friendships, when I look at Jeff P. and Luke Thompson and Sam, and when I look at the relationship between Chad and Grizz and Neil Daedalus, and I see Clara coming in because of Sourdough Neil, and I look at Nate and his community of people around Grail Country, and I get so much joy watching these relationships grow between each other. And when it comes down to this, what I understand as sort of what ARC wants to do, we will gather many of the world's great leading thinkers, business leaders, policymakers, cultural formers to interrogate some of today's most important social, economic, cultural, and moral questions. The relationships we leave there with are more important than the ideas we can glean that go into what for many of us is this massive file cabinet of ideas. Now, of course, in the corner, this video is making the rounds, and someone sent me the video, and I hadn't quite gotten up to. There's a lot to be said about this video, and a friend just wrote me a letter, a little frustrated with some of how Christianity was defended in this video, but everybody's got their take. But of course, Elizabeth Oldfield sort of lets loose at this point.
So I really don't mean to pour scorn. I think an honest intellectual question is a holy thing. Like, these questions are not unimportant. They are deep and meaningful. They're just some questions. And I think we get into trouble where we take the methodology of either philosophy or science and narrow all knowing and think this decision, this biggest, deepest existential decision, can only be made.
It is so much fun watching Rowan Williams and Elizabeth Oldfield when they're not talking in this video. It is so interesting. But Elizabeth basically lets loose now, saying something similar to what I said in that, well, we'll let her talk.
When we have fixed our model and twiddled our dials and up, fine-tuning, down suffering, whatever it is, found some balance, and out pops something we can be certain about that will bear our weight. I think Pascal said in the 17th century, and I still think now, it's a draw. If you use just philosophy and science, it comes out even. Like, there are some really good reasons to think there might be a God in the universe. There are some really good reasons, suffering being the primary one, to doubt that. You are embarked. You can maybe try and create a third way that you are, working on your own, like Descartes did in his room, a model, where he stripped away relationality, he stripped away testimony, he stripped away inherited knowledge, he stripped away the body, he stripped away all these ways of knowing that down the centuries humans have found to answer these deepest questions to an entirely Descartes-centric theory of knowledge, and then just leave God in your model as your flicking, or, you know, dial down power and dial up love, or whatever it is. I get it. I get the wrestle. I get the longing. But I don't believe in philosophical Christianity. I believe in Jesus. I believe in the God who's pulling on the other end of the rope, right? I think what some of these intellectual things can do, they can remove some of the barriers. They can make us less worried that we're going to be conned, or we're going to look stupid, or we're going to be stupid. And this is what Pascal's Wage is all about. It's not really about betting. He was in conversation with Fermat. It's a bit of an in-joke with Fermat about odds. But it's really a way of saying you are not, the reasons that you are deciding, the way you choose to point your boat when you are embarked is less about reason and generally about something deeper.
You get the message, and I know I just frustrated my friend, but I take what Elizabeth Oldfield said there is all of this is finally about people, not ideas. Ideas serve people, not the other way around. And that's and so when I think about the art conference, and I think about the fact that we're gathering all of these people, and I love ideas. I mean, anybody who listens to my channel knows I love ideas. I've got, I'm probably pushing on 3,400 videos of where I do nothing but talk about ideas. I mean, I love the darn things, but I try to love people more and better. And Jesus didn't say love your neighbor's ideas. He said love your neighbor. And so when I think about what I want to do with this wonderful gift, and I see it, the opportunity to go to this conference as an enormous gift, because not everybody gets to go. And so what I'm going to hope to try to do is, as much as possible, in the time that I am there, have conversations, but not in a big room with a stage, and probably not in a noisy room. So I don't know, depending on the difficulty is that if I'm in North America, there's somewhere a Christian Reformed church, and I can just kind of flash my badge and say, "Can I have a room?" And then someone will give me a room. And that's what's beautiful about being a part of a family like the Christian Reformed Church. But to get as many people, or to not as many people, I'm not maxing the number of people. I'm trying to max the ability to connect with people there. And because I would love, I can just go through my mental Rolodex of people that are in the UK and people that are going to the UK and think, oh, wouldn't it be amazing to be in an estuary group with some of these people? And then there'll be other people in the group that I never even knew. A great example of this was my conversation with Andy Wilkins. So I went to the art conference last year, and a couple of friends, Tayo was there too, we went to the Ian McGilchrist event. There was this tiny little Ian McGilchrist event. I didn't ask a question or go shake his hand because, as much as I admire the man, I didn't want to bother him and other people. Again, it's the whole 2 lines thing. Those of you who listen, you know about the 2 lines. But I'm standing there with some of my friends after listening to Ian McGilchrist, and someone taps me on the shoulder, and it's Andy Wilkins. He says, "I've watched some of your videos." I said, "Well, thank you." And he says, "I want to talk to you." I said, "That would be lovely." I said, "Well, when when everything settles down and I get back, send me an email. And when you've got time and I've got time, let's talk." And we had this wonderful conversation. And he told such great stories. I mean, this is one of these Randos conversations that I look back, and it was so much fun. And I knew so little about his life. And he talks about, having to get a job and all of that, and then climbing to the top. And it was just such a wonderful conversation, and it happened because I was there, and I don't even think he was there for the conference, but Ian McGilchrist sort of brought us into the same room. He recognized me, boom, boom, and there we have a conversation. And again, Andy's such a cool guy, you know. But how in my life can, or how in either of our lives can, we sort of fit this together? And so, what I'd like to, and sort of the vision of Estuary and the TLC is that, well, maybe I can't be friends with 1,000 people, but maybe those 1,000 people can be in the same network of me as me, and we can sort of even have less than 6 degrees of separation. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. And so today's live stream, I'm just going to practice what I'm thinking about, but I'm just going to use the resources at hand. And I hope to do a bunch of these things. And maybe if some of you are out there and you're going to be, this is what I'll do. I'm clearly making this up as I go along because, well, what don't I make up as I go along? So this is what I'm going to do. If, like my office, I'm cleaning it. This is what cleaning looks like. It's terrible because you got to rip things apart in order to put things back together. If you're going to go to the art conference and you've Friday Pacific 10 to 12, you're interested and available, let me know. My email address, it's not hard to figure out. And let's, we're probably going to have some pre-conversations for the Galway, Ireland event that we're going to have. So I'm excited about that. But also, if you're going to ARC and you want to just participate, again, it's an estuary conversation, which means you come into this thing, you don't need anything prepared, and the conversation just goes. And there'll be a limited number of people, and no one will dominate the conversation, hopefully. And the emphasis will be on listening, which is the sneaky trick of Estuary. And yeah, so that's the plan. We'll see if it holds together. Every time I put Estuary in the title of a video, not a lot of people see it. So we'll see. Leave a comment, or if you're going to ARC, send me an email, and we'll see what we can put together.